Okay, so now we've looked at the different resources we can get from Earth. Now what we're going to look at is what resources we can use to get energy. Now, when we talk about energy, we can talk about the energy we need to ingest, the energy we get from ingesting food, and the energy that therefore we get from our movement and everything. But us humans, we need more energy than that. We actually need a lot of energy to sustain our society around us. The lights that are shining in your room right now, that requires energy. The fuel that your car runs on, that fuel is giving energy to your car. All of these different things require energy. And mankind has gone to a point where we have so many people in our population and over Earth. We're like, if you look at the past 100 years, our population has spiked up massively. And for this population, we need so much energy to sustain life. So our energy can actually be sourced from different types of resources. Like we talked before, it can be sourced from renewable resources or non-renewable resources. So if we look here at all the energy all the different resources we get for our energy, for electricity, for fuel, or all of those types of energy, we look here and we see that 37% of the resources, 37% of the energy we use comes from oil, and then 25 from coal and 23 from natural gases. These are not renewable resources. It's only down here that we've got all the renewable resources, and we're only relying on them by a tiny little bit. It's not very much. So let's dive in today. Well, let's look through the different types of resources and why they're considered renewable and non-renewable. So remember, a renewable resource is something that can be replaced within a human's lifespan, within 80 years. If it can't be replaced that quickly, it's a non-renewable resource. So non-renewable resources, we've got four main ones. We've got the three fossil fuels, oil, coal, and gas, and then we got nuclear energy. So fossil fuels, like I said before, that originated as plants but have decomposed to either be coal, that's lumps of solid fossil fuel. It can be oil, which is a liquid, or it can actually be gas. So yeah, if you actually dig under the earth, you'll actually find trapped inside the rock. You won't necessarily see giant gas pockets, but you'll see some rock is soft enough to store gases in them. And same for oil. Some rock is soft enough to store oils in them. And so we'll find that, if you look at certain spots in the earth, you'll find these fossil fuels, and these fossil fuels are very quick and easy. You can quickly burn them to turn water into steam, and that process gives us a quick release of energy, and we use that energy a lot. But the downside to fossil fuels is it releases a lot of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. Now, we said before, it's renewable. You can keep getting those plants to breathe in carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen. But if you're producing carbon dioxide at a rate that's faster than what the plants can breathe in, then what ends up happening is that we get too much greenhouse gases. And when you have too many greenhouse gases, that traps a lot of heat in the earth. And so the general consensus of scientists today is that we have too many greenhouse gases and the earth is actually heating up. And that has a lot of negative side effects. So fossil fuels is not a very green solution. Nuclear energy, on the other hand, is a bit different. Nuclear energy is not renewable, but you can actually get a lot of energy from nuclear energy. The way nuclear energy works is you take radioactive material, usually uranium or plutonium, and you actually go down on a microscopic level. You do some special things that make, on a microscopic level, that cause the atoms to split apart. And or you can get those two atoms to fuse together. And the act of splitting them apart or fusing them together is what actually creates energy, because the atoms themselves store so much energy. And this actually does not produce any greenhouse gases at all. You see these chimneys here. What's coming out of them is just steam. That's it. That's not a greenhouse gas, or it's not a major one anyway. Nuclear energy is actually a really green alternative to fossil fuels. But there's a big downside to nuclear energy, and that is, remember, it is non-renewable, so there is only a certain amount of uranium and plutonium that exist, though the rate at the amount of energy you can get from like one lump of uranium is way more than what you can get from one lump of coal. But the downside is you actually end up producing some radioactive wastes that must be really safely stored for thousands of years before it becomes not radioactive anymore and not dangerous anymore. And if you don't contain your nuclear power plant well, then you can get what's known as a nuclear fallout. And that's where radiation can spread everywhere, and it can be quite destructive. So there's a few dangerous downsides to nuclear energy, but it is green, unlike fossil fuels. So let's look at the renewable resources, though. If these are the ones that are renewable, why aren't we using them as much? Well, let's look at each one of them. There's 5 main types of renewable resources. So the first one is, there we go, water, hydroelectricity. The way hydroelectricity works, the way water works is we can use running water to spin generators. And when you spin a generator, that creates electricity. So if we build up some dams and tell the water, hang on, water, I want you to direct you guys through this way, then it will spin this thing, which will spin the generator. And yeah, that creates electricity. But there's a few downsides to this. Firstly, it's not usually, it doesn't produce greenhouse gases, that's a good thing, and it doesn't produce toxic wastes, but it has a negative effect to the environment that it's just been placed in. It can disrupt the flow of the river, which means that all the animals that survive on having lots of water down here are hindered. They need more water. So there's a few downsides to hydroelectricity. Solar energy, that's another renewable resource, because solar energy takes use of sunlight, and the sun is continually shining light. There's actually a number of different ways you can get solar energy. The common one that you'd see is with solar panels. When you've got a solar panel, they have lots of tiny little mirrors that direct the sunlight into little solar cells. And what a solar cell does is it causes an atomic reaction to occur, which generates electricity. Now, solar panels are actually quite expensive. That's why we don't see a lot of them. But if you keep using solar panels, then technically the energy efficiency should be beneficial in the long term. Other ways that you can get solar energy without solar panels is with solar ponds. That's where you're just literally heating up water, and that can help generate electricity. And you can also have a solar furnace where you direct all the light into one spot and produce high amounts of heat, and that also generates electricity. So yeah, solar energy can be used in a few different ways. Wind energy. So wind is when you're literally harnessing the power of the wind. This has been done for eons, and you see old farmers using wind energy, not necessarily to make electricity, but just to turn machines and everything, which would usually otherwise take electricity to work. So with wind energy, you are literally getting the wind. There we go, that's spinning. You're getting the wind to turn a windmill or a wind turbine. And yeah, that again generates electricity, just very similar to hydroelectricity. Fourth type is geothermal energy. with geothermal energy, you're making use of how when the deeper you go in the earth, the hotter it gets. And the closer you are to, say, magma or molten rock, it gets really hot. And so if you heat up water down there, you'll see there's a bit of a pattern where a lot of forms of energy are utilized by heating up water. If you heat up water down there, then that helps get energy. So that's geothermal energy. And the fifth type of renewable energy is biomass. So this one you might not have heard of before. Biomass is when we take just dead plant or dead material, like plants or wood or anything, and you burn it, and you get energy from that. For example, you can burn wood, and ta-da, you're releasing energy. If you want to burn it in a factory, you can extract that energy for electricity, or you can just convert biomass into biofuel, which is often used to power cars, or you can convert biomass into biogas, which is, or again, that can be used to burn and produce electricity. So there are a lot of problems to all these different renewable resources, though. Firstly, they are unreliable. You have to rely on very specific conditions for each of these renewable resources to work. Like you need the right wind for a wind turbine to turn. You need a sunny day for solar panels to work. And on top of that, they actually don't provide as much energy as what we actually need. Coal just provides energy a lot faster than what solar energy or wind turbines can. I mean, if we had lots and lots of wind turbines and lots of solar panels, then perhaps by that point that we could get more energy from those things than from, say, coal or oil. But another problem is they're not really cost effective. These types of renewable energy are really expensive. And as well as that, I mentioned they're not really efficient. Coal, on the other hand, is really, really efficient. There's a few other little minor problems you can read here. But the ultimate problem here is the renewable resource, the resources for energy we're relying on, oil, coal, and gas, they're going to run out someday. And by that time, we're going to need to be way more dependent on these renewable resources. So we need to start now. We need to start conserving energy now. We got to stop using as much of the non-renewable resources as we are, and we can do that by switching off appliances when we don't need them. Try to use less electricity. And remember that some of the products that we buy also come from factories that also use up a lot of electricity. So the less products that we can buy, the better. On top of that, just arcing back to the last session about Earth's resources. All the artificial resources we have, such as plastic and everything, some of these resources end up never being able to degrade, such as plastic, or at least it doesn't degrade in the human's lifetime. So we need to consistently reuse, turn this into a much more renewable resource per se by consistently reusing plastic or recycling plastic. Or just reducing the amount of plastic we use. We need to be much more considerate about all the different resources we have here on Earth, because at the rate we're using them, we're not going to be able to sustain a very long future. Thanks for watching.